What's up, guys? It's Chris, and just like you, I'm one with the Force. Before we get going on today's topic, be sure you leave a like on this video, as it really does help me out. And if you're new, join me and subscribe, baby. What's up, guys? I'm so excited to get into today's topic, which I've been kind of hinting at throughout different parts of my page here on YouTube or videos on Instagram even. But that is this whole thing of Resistance, Star Wars Resistance being a disappointing series to me, and different things it could have done, and characters it needed to develop more. And really, you just look at this sequel time period as a time where we needed a lot of backstory with the characters we've been given, and Resistance should have been the perfect opportunity for that. But what triggered this video was actually a question from my Instagram follower asking, did I like the prequels? Which of course I did. Like, I grew up loving them. I was a kid growing up and loved each and every one of them. But I remember at the time a lot of people didn't. Like the Star Wars fans, the OGs, it was very divisive like the sequels were. And in my opinion, one of the biggest reasons for that, outside of just time going by and people looking back with, just understanding it a little bit more, but the Clone Wars series, that was such a great series. In my opinion, the best one of the three animated series. It adds so much context to the story going on, each of the characters, the clones themselves. I mean, it's crazy what that show was able to do, and it's a big reason why, the prequels will look back better. So in today's topic, I want to talk about what I really do think they need to go back and not, keep Resistance, but make something in a certain time period that really builds up the characters during the sequel trilogy. And I think it's really going to help out the sequels long term. Okay, so obviously Resistance is done. It's done its thing, had a great finale, but it really just did not tie into the sequels nearly as much as it could have. And again, I'll give Resistance a little bit of not a pass at all, but a little bit of a pass because it was going on during the trilogy, and Clone Wars had the benefit of coming, after the prequels, and then obviously Rebels way after the original trilogy, so it knows where to pick its spots, right, and what to do. Now, again, with that being said, Resistance had no excuse for not building upon certain characters and doing a lot more of what they did. But now that the sequels are over, I think you can kind of piece on what kind of series this should have been, or if they do make an animated series for, the sequels time era, which I think they should make another one, because Resistance did not do what any of the others did. They need to make one more in line with Clone Wars and Rebels. And there's been rumors about them continuing Rebels, like a Rebels sequel, and maybe that could take up for this because it might work with the timeline I'm going to be bringing up. But yeah, that's what we're first going to be talking about here, is what time period do I think that this new series should take place in. Alright, I've given a lot of thought to this, and I think I've just settled in on just before The Force Awakens. I think that's where the series should start. Now, let's say we have 3 or 4 seasons, whatever more, like Clone Wars, but let's just say we get 3 or 4. Maybe at some point you get past and we can go into what's going on between The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. I think that we can do that, but I think it has to start years before The Force Awakens, not right before The Force Awakens. I think it really needs to build up some of these characters and just give us more stories with them. I'm not sure who the main character is going to be. That's what more we can speculate. Let me know in the comments. But let's just say in theory we're doing Poe, a character like Poe, who we learn a little bit more about in The Rise of Skywalker. Obviously, his parents were part of the Rebels. They had a lot of clout at one point. But this is someone we can see just maybe grow up and go through stories. But like Clone Wars, it should show us a lot of different people's stories. So maybe we get a lot of time with Poe. But it would also be cool to see Finn as a stormtrooper, like just seeing what he went through, what really made him trigger that decision, what other things had he seen, build up his relationship with some of those troopers, and just things they may have talked about. That's just like kind of side stuff. That doesn't have to be anything main, but definitely characters like Hux and Phasma, those need to be the 2 main villains. In Resistance, we're dealing with 2 people that have nothing to do with the movies we've seen or any of the books we've read. But instead, give us Hux and Phasma, like give us some stuff there. Like they could even give us some things more with Kylo and Hux, periodically. Like obviously Kylo's going to be like the Vader, where he only shows up, in the big final, season finale type stuff. But Hux and Phasma, you can do so much with them. I actually read most of that book, Phasma. I didn't actually finish it, which I need to get to. But it's building all that character up. She has this thing with Cardinal. It talks about Hux and his father's. Like, to see none of that, like, carry over into the sequels, I understand, but do it in the show. Like, have some of those characters and things we hear about, like, let's see some of that in the show, just some missions with some of those characters. Again, that's all it has to be. That's all Clone Wars was. I mean, there were some great arcs with some great stories, but it was also just some great character development. We get so much with Obi-Wan, Anakin, both their love interest, but then just their relationship, Padme. I mean, so much stuff makes more sense in the prequels. the villains, as I was just mentioning, General Grievous and Dooku, they get a lot of development in the Clone Wars, that's not there in the prequels. Think about what you can do for Phasma and Hux, even someone like Kylo. I said before, Force Awakens, not saying we have to see Ben Solo, but it's an animated series. Like, you can just give us some flashbacks of Solo, like, just for something. I'm not saying it has to be like what it's all about, but we can get a lot of that. We can get a lot with Leia. In the book Bloodline, we get to see that it was a big deal in the galaxy when it was revealed that Vader was her father. Let's see the ramifications of that a little bit more in the series. I think that would be a great time for them to piece in an animated series where we're just getting a whole bunch of stories that are all connected with what's happened in the sequel, which is the rise of the First Order, the rise of the Resistance, all that kind of stuff. And it builds upon, the scene in Force Awakens where we see Hosnian Prime get killed. And we do get that built upon a bit more in Resistance. That I do give Resistance credit there. There were some things that they did, but not nearly enough. So again, I think that's what they should do. Again, you still keep Resistance, but just make a show right before, the Force, or not right before, but maybe a few years before, and then maybe it goes all the way through after seasons where it can fill in the gaps between The Last Jedi and The Force Awakens. But that's just my opinion, guys. Really let me know in the comments what characters you want to see, or what even, time period you think this should all be in. I'll probably make a follow-up video to this, kind of going more in detail of what we would do during this time period. I've mentioned some things here, but I just wanted to put that out there. It's something I've always thought about. I've always just hated Resistance for what it done. It just didn't add to the sequels. It's hard to look at it as the definitive animated series for this trilogy because it just is so lackluster. They gotta do something else to kind of add, to what's going on here. And I think it's the perfect time. After a few years, maybe they get it going, about 2-3 years, if we get something. That's just would be what I do in my opinion. So let me know in the comments. Again, make sure you like this video and definitely subscribe if you're new. And I'll be back with you guys on another topic. All right.